All right, so 5.2. We're on the second half of lesson 5, which is the first chapter, or the first lesson of chapter 2. So today we're going to mix the same two substances that we saw in the experiment together in the sim to observe what happens at the atomic scale. You will be able to gather evidence that you couldn't see at the macro scale. So remember, the macro scale is what we see with our eyes. Were you able to see any of the atoms? You weren't, right? So we don't know what happened on the atomic scale. And remember, to get a new substance, the atomic structure has to be different. So we need to find out if the atomic structure of the product, or what we ended up with, is different than the substances we started with. And so we can use the sim to help us do that. We're going to be working in a different mode of the sim called Laboratory A mode. I'm going to watch a video here that shows the features of Laboratory A mode.
Let's review the features of Laboratory A mode in the chemical reactions sim.
Why is it so quiet?
Start by pressing the Add Substance.
All right, just a moment here.
This is where you...
Let's figure out why it's so slow or so quiet.
To test. You can test one substance or mix two substances together. If you make a mistake or change your mind, press X in the box to start over. To view the properties of the substance, turn on the View Properties toggle. Press Test to observe what happens. Once testing is complete, press Results to observe substances after the test. The Review button lets you play back the test and observe it again. To see the atomic scale after testing, turn on the View Atomic Scale toggle. You can use the timeline slider to replay the testing, or select the different points on the timeline to review the test stages. To start over, press the Reset button in the top right corner.
All right, so just a little overview of how to use the sim. No, that's not what I want. All right. So now we're going to mix the calcium chloride and the sodium carbonate in the sim. These are the same substances that you observed getting mixed in the video yesterday at home and today in class. In Laboratory A mode, you're going to add and mix the two substances. Then you'll review the results and use evidence from the final review screen to help you answer the questions. We're going to go to Google Classroom and open up number 2 for today. So number 2 for today, mixing substances in the sim. The directions say to gather evidence from the sim about what happens when calcium chloride and sodium carbonate are combined. I'll make mine bigger. So we're going to gather evidence by observing what happens when you mix two substances together in the sim. The two substances are the same two substances you mixed together in the investigation earlier in this lesson. Look for additional evidence that will help you to answer the question. The question is, can substances change into different substances? We are using the sim today, so we want to go ahead and open that up by clicking this blue link. So go ahead and open up your sim if you haven't already. We'll need to log in. In laboratory A mode, press the add substance and choose calcium chloride, which is CaCl2. So first I want to make sure I'm on laboratory A mode, which is the 3 drop downs, and choose laboratory A. Yes. And then I'm going to add substances. That's not what I want to add though. And someone remind me, what's the first one? What's the chemical formula, Hunter? Good, CaCl2. That's the calcium chloride. That is the larger substance that has different size spheres, okay? And what is the chemical formula for the other substance that I need to add? Is Hunter the only one that can help me out today? Jacob, you want to help me? Huh?
I don't know it.
You don't know? Okay, that's fine. Let's look it up. So we might go back to our directions. And number 2 says press the add substance button and choose sodium carbonate. So what is the chemical formula for sodium carbonate, Jacob?
Na2CO3.
Very good. Na2CO3. I am sorry that you didn't know where to find that information. So those are the 2 substances that you want to add, the same 2 substances from yesterday. What do we do next? Rose, what do I do next? I hit test, right? Is that what the directions say? Yep. Step 3 is to press test and observe what happens. Here they go. All right. What's the next step? Who's going to read the next step for me? Step 4. Go ahead, Jacob.
Results.
It just says results. That's what the direction says. Results. No. What does it say?
Press results, then examine results.
Very good. So we're going to press results and we're going to examine our results. Interesting. What do I do next? Rose, what's my next step? Okay, so I'm going to press review. Before I do that, I am going to take a look at these 2 substances. I now have NaCl. Does that become familiar to anybody? Have we talked about NaCl before? Sodium chloride? What does it say sodium chloride is? Table salt, right? We talked about that before. And then we have CaCO3, calcium carbonate, which is chalk, right? All right, that's interesting. So we're going to click review. And I remember in the video, they told me that I could click view properties, and that'll give me all of the properties of those substances. And I can also click view atomic scale so that I can see the atomic scale of each of those substances. All right, I'm going to go back to my directions. Oh, that's exactly what it said to do. Number 6. And number 7, use evidence from the final review screen to help you answer the questions below. What happened when the 2 substances were combined together in the cup? The substances changed into different substances. They did not change into different substances, or I am not sure if they changed into different substances. The cup that they're talking about is on here. Okay, so we started with calcium chloride, and it was CaCl2. So you see those atoms there. Here's the atomic scale of the sodium carbonate, Na2CO3. And an arrow in chemistry means equal, or it means equal, and you say yields. So if you mix together those 2 substances, it yields NaCl, and here's the atomic structure of that, and calcium carbonate, CaCO3, and here is the atomic scale of that. Are these 2 new substances? What do we think? I see some head bobbing. Are we tired? We can't hold our heads up? What does that mean? Do we have new substances, Hunter?
Yes.
Yes, we do. How come?
Because
What evidence is there?
the atoms are in different spots.
Yeah, right. Those atoms have different arrangements. They are no longer in the same arrangements. The atomic scales are different. So if you look at the atomic scale here, it's different from both of these. The same thing for this atomic scale. It's different from both of those. So what we ended up with is something completely different than what we started with. We started with calcium chloride and sodium carbonate, and we ended up with table salt and chalk. That's interesting. So on your document, I want you to answer these bottom two questions. Highlight what answer you believe to be true, and then explain your answer. When you finish, you should turn that in. Okay, so we're now going to answer the investigation question using evidence from the sim and the hands-on activity. So the hands-on activity was the macro scale of mixing those two substances. So on your screens, you should have the investigation question. I can't, oh, there it is. How would you now answer the investigation question? What is your answer, and have your ideas changed? So yesterday you had to give your initial ideas about this question. I now want you to write what you have learned. So can substances change into different substances? Provide evidence from the two activities that we did to support your answer. When you finish, submit it. All right, so in the sim and the hands-on investigation, you observed new substances forming. The new substance had different properties and are made of different groups of atoms than the starting substances. So a repeat from our first chapter. The substances all had different physical properties and they had different groups of atoms. We now have evidence for this fifth key concept. This will be our first key concept of chapter 2. During a chemical reaction, one or more starting substances, which we're now going to call reactants, change into one or more different substances, which are called products. When describing a chemical reaction, the starting substance are called the reactants because these are the substances that react. So the two substances that we started with, before mixing them together, these are reactants. The item that we ended up with, which now looks even a little bit more different, is called our product. When describing a chemical reaction, the ending substances are called products because those are the substances that are produced. A product is an ending substance that is made during a chemical reaction. This diagram shows the reactants and the products for the chemical reaction you observed in this lesson. So we have our reactants. It yields or equals our products, the sodium and the chalk. That is the end of lesson 5. Make sure that you turn in both your Nearpod and your document for today. What is tonight's homework? The writing piece. Yes, I don't think you've had homework all year. And really it's not homework because it was due Wednesday. But let's make sure that we get that done. I hope you guys all have a wonderful weekend.